Hello everyone, I'm Black Marvin. I'm a progressive psychedelic trance artist. I'm a professional sound designer and I'm also a teacher for electronic music production. Today I got a formula to show. It's a formula for saturation and it's going to be good for every levels. I still to this day go by this formula and sometimes I diverse a bit, but it's always my first checkpoint. But it's going to be really good also for someone who's learning saturation. Maybe you don't know, like, do I put enough? Do I put, not enough? So it's going to be good for that. Also, it's going to be a good foundation for a video I'm going to do eventually on the channel called multi-layered saturation. It's a technique I'm going to show. And this video is going to be really good in order to understand what's coming up. Speaking of which, if you don't want to miss that video or, just like mixing, mastering, sound design tips, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel. And yeah, let's pretty much start right now. I want this video to be, it's a formula, it's quick. We don't want to drag this for too long. Let's dive in. All right, so I'm inside FL Studio. It's going to be pretty simple to show. I'm going to show the two things I'm going to use today. I'm going to use Fire the Gold, which is a preamp saturator from Acoustica Audio. Second thing I'm going to use is this loop here. It's a loop I made for the company House of Loop. It's in a pack about progressive trance. So it's a slow loop. There's kick, drums, and a percussion. It's going to be great to demonstrate what we want to demonstrate today. And it sounds like this. Now the formula itself, you can see the reason I chose this one is that, there's a round knob. So we have somewhat of a 0% value all the way up to a 100% value. So it's, I like the round shape. It's going to be good to demonstrate what I want to show. Also, please note, the actual zero value is minus 24 dB. And this is considered plus 24 dB. Also, today I'm not going to cover much about the gain aspect in this video. I'm going to cover that in another video, but you can note that the input gain right now is at minus 6 dB peak. It can matter, but I'm going to show you in another video why it matters so much. So the trick in and of itself, what you want to do is go all the way up to the point where there's audible saturation. You really want to start to hear some saturation, almost like where it becomes destructive, okay, where it's very noticeable. This is going to be your maximum point. So first we need to identify that. Then once you get that, you're going to dial it up to 30% of that value. In real life, how does this look like? Let's first find our point where there's some audible saturation. So you can hear that right now we have audible distortion. Also, you can hear that's with some of the Acoustica plugins, and I believe that is because they sampled some hardware and maybe the technique they use. But sometimes when you go through the knob, there's some audible artifacts. Don't mistake that as some, saturation sizzle. This is just artifacts. But right now we really have that point. And I think it's interesting that it's actually it kind of corresponds to 100% of the plugin. I believe it might be due to our gain staging because we are at minus 6 dB peak in, or maybe it's just coincidence. But yeah, now we have our 100% point. Now we're going to go to 30% of that point, but also I want you to visualize this into 3 different parts. The first part is going to be subtle saturation. And this is a really cool realm where we're going to dwell a lot. I'm going to cover that in another video. The second part is saturation. And the third part is oversaturation. So for the formula I want to show, this is 100%. Now, the second part to apply the formula is to go at 30%. and voila, it's around here. So around here, usually, and I say usually, but I can pretty much say with confidence because I've done that 1,000 times, maybe honestly, maybe a million times. I don't know, but like I'm doing that on such a regular basis. I consider this to this day to be the sweet spot for saturation. Now, if you're new to saturation and you're looking for a no-brainer formula to apply, this is it. You have it. That's it. Now, if you're a little bit more advanced, I'm going to discuss about a couple of things here that you can do. This is 30%, right? There's also a nice checkpoint to go at 50%, around 50%. This is a bit more, this is still considering like subtle saturation, but it's a bit, there's a bit more work here. But you really don't want to go into that third part here where it's over saturation, because you can potentially ruin your mix. You won't necessarily ruin your mix with one saturator, but if you do that on just a couple saturator, just don't forget that in your mix, in the end, it's going to all stack up. So, it's kind of the idea to leave some kind of headroom for saturation also, because during, mastering, stem mastering, and later stages, saturation is also going to be applied potentially. So you kind of want to not oversaturate your single channels. You want to leave some saturation headroom. So formula-wise, that's pretty much all I had to show. Now, what I want to do is I want to show the exact same thing with two other saturators real quick, because I really want the knowledge and the formula to be shown properly. So let's try two other saturators. So I have the distortion unit by kilohertz, and make sure, when it opens up at something like 6 plus 6 dB or something. Just make sure you double click and you get that back to 0. There's also some techniques, we can include maybe the mix knob into some, formula on some techniques, but I'm not going to cover that today. I really want to go and discuss the 30% thing. So let's do the exact same thing. We're going to go 100%. We're going to reach the audible destructive saturation point. We're going to go 30% of that, and bing, we have it. That would be around here. Also, what is it's fun to understand is that every saturator is sort of it's a different curve. So it's sometimes, it ramps up in a linear fashion. I would consider maybe Fire the Gold to feel a bit more linear, and this one felt a bit more exponential. I'm just claiming it's how it felt. I don't necessarily know if it's actually the case, but what is fun is to notice that they all have different curves. So that's also a good reason to apply this formula, because it's going to, if you go, oh, well, this is always +4 or +5 or +6 or whatever. But since a lot of saturators have different curves, your formula might not apply. But this, it's foolproof. So we have the audible point of distortion, and let's go about, this is +10. Is going to be easy to calculate 30% of that. It's 4. No, it's just kidding. It's going to be +3 dBs. So the saturation sweet spot for this setup, so with this loop signal, this distortion plugin, this is the sweet spot. But like I said, I don't want you to go back and say, oh, well, +3 is the sweet spot in kilohertz distort. That's not what I mean. I want you to be able to use that formula, because for me, for this case, for this specific example, that's it. But even if I would just change the incoming signal, then it would not necessarily be the same sweet spot. I would just need to redo the formula. So it's the formula, not the value. So this is the last plugin I'm going to cover today. This is IVGI by Klanghelm, and it's version 1. I'm super picky, but actually I prefer the version 1 to the version 2 that they released. This one is also free. So you can note that all the plugins I've used today are free. So there's no real reason for you to not just go ahead and start using this in your own workflow. Yeah, so Klanghelm IVGI version 1. Also, a side note is that for some saturation plugin, you might note that there is, it affects the gain. Sometimes it's going to push the gain, and other times it's going to reduce the gain, and other times there's some, it's not really going to affect the gain per se. Like Fire the Gold, you could hear that it was saturating the signal, but it didn't not felt like we had to compensate it in some ways. But you could hear that the kilohertz distortion, the gain actually went up. So you need to think about that, or actually take that into consideration. Because if you go into this one, there's actually, either if you have it in Snap Heap, you can gain compensate, but with just this unit, you can't. And a fun thing is IVGI, you're going to hear that the algorithm is, it's saturating, but it's like the gain, you lose gain. So we're going to have to compensate positively. And in contrary to the kilohertz distortion that you have to pull back some of the gain, I thought it was just interesting to show both of these exist, So let's dial in some saturation. We're going to find, again, the 100% point. It's like around here. Maybe 7 is like, well, yeah, you can hear that it starts to really degrade and it starts to, oversaturate. So we're going to go 30% from that. This is for me, at some point it became intuitive. Like for this video, I really, choose the values and I really care about these. But at some point also, it's just going to be a flow for you. It's going, oh yeah, 100%, then pretty much around here. But if we calculate, we have, so we can see on the top corner, this is considered 6.45. So probably around 2. And by the way, I'm not looking on here. I'm looking on the top corner of FL Studio. This is actually showing me the value. So I'm going to go around 2 then. So the sweet spot should be here. Let's bypass it for fun. Yeah, you don't get fooled, because you can hear that this algorithm kind of rounds off the top end. And also it eats up a bit of gain, but yeah, it's definitely saturating. It usually, I like this one because it gives a really warm feeling. Since we are speaking of this one, I also like to kind of tilt the response, because you can see that it's fairly warm. I like to tilt the response a bit towards the high frequencies. Yeah, you can hear that it gets bolder. I like this plugin so much. Again, like I said, this is pretty much 30%, but if you want to jazz things up, you could go also maybe to 50%. So that would be 3. So something around here. Man, this is just so good. Just making me fall in love again with this plugin. And you can hear that we don't necessarily need to compensate the gain at this stage. I think with this algorithm, it's like when you go to more intense saturation, then it really starts to get destructive and you need to, push back some gain into it. But that would be definitely the sweet spot with this plugin. So there you have it. Now you have the formula to find every saturation plugin sweet spot for saturation. And that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it's going to be useful. It's going to help you saturate stuff, because it's a lot of fun and it's a great technique. It's a great mixing technique that you need to do. If you need some help with learning electronic music production, mixing, mastering, sound design, I have a community of students that I run. There's some group lessons, some one-to-one lessons, and a lot of educational content. So if you're interested into joining the community and start working on yourself as a producer, you can have a chat with me on Instagram. We're going to discuss how we can help you become a better producer. And until then, I will see you in another video about either mixing, mastering, sound design. And those are pretty much the topics I cover. See you soon. Happy producing.